What's the best theory on UFOs or aliens you've ever heard? U/deleted responded. There are so many star systems with potentially inhabitable planets out there that the chances that we have been the only life in the universe is extremely slim. The question, instead, is whether life arising elsewhere has managed to survive destruction and remain alive today such that they might be able to contact us. That is to say, there have probably been countless civilizations for the past several billion years that simply haven't made it. The pizza people responded. Any species advanced enough to find us wouldn't make contact. They'd study us the way we study animals. Ideally with minimal interference. Compare the average abduction story to the way we dart large animals, collect data and leave them to wake a bit groggy and confused but unharmed. Edit. This took off quite a bit more than I expected. I feel like I should be very clear that it's not a theory I completely agree with, I simply think it's an interesting idea that tends to create discussions. I just threw it in the ring to see what would happen. I agree with a lot of the criticism of it actually. But that's kinda the point. I used to wholeheartedly agree with this theory. But after much discussion, debate and reflection my views have changed. But it's a good jumping off point. U/GoGoJack responded. The movie Contact actually makes a good case that we haven't been visited by UFOs or aliens. Our most powerful broadcasts have traveled at best a few dozen light years from this planet. To put that into perspective, if the Milky Way galaxy was the same size as North America, the Earth would be a speck of dust floating around a knick-knack on a living room table in a house in Arizona. Our most powerful broadcast signals have made it to the end of the driveway, or at best across the street. If there were a hyper-intelligent species 2 blocks over desperately listening for signs of intelligence in the neighborhood, they wouldn't even know we existed for at least a couple thousand years. When they finally picked up our signal, our first television broadcasts, it would take their response another couple thousand years to arrive here. U/Rickma02 responded. There is a very simple explanation as to why abductees independently described grey aliens as looking the same. There are no aliens and no abduction took place, but rather they are abstracting residual memories left over from being infants and looking up at adults. Before an infant's visual cortex is fully developed, an adult human looking down at them would appear rounded and grey in color with large eyes. Cross that indistinct memory with a sleep state subconscious and standard psychological patterns and boom, alien abduction. It also explains the sensation of being lifted, examined and probed. U/Aboveth31 responded. That we haven't met a single one yet because they're either as technologically advanced as us, or not as much as us. We always imagine thanks to movies and shit that aliens are superior beings, more advanced on every aspect. But what if all the sentient races of the universe are actually all roughly on the same level technologically speaking? What if the reason we still haven't met them is because they too can't travel any further than their own solar system or the closest astral body to them, and the reason we can't meet each other is because none of us are advanced enough technologically speaking to even find each other? Imagine what we think about aliens today, now apply to what other races. They most likely think the same thing as us about what they call their aliens. U/Teluram Tanner responded. That they are from a breakaway human civilization that is keeping their secrets to themselves. Essentially, that some place like Wakanda is real. Or that Jules Verne really isn't science fiction. Equals it's actually science fact. When the rest of the world was making do with steam-powered industrialization, someone figured out anti-gravity and zero-point energy from the interaction between electromagnetism and gravity. So they kept this technology for themselves, and have been zipping around the rest of us keeping an eye on things. U/Edgar responded. All the UFO sightings throughout history are just humans from the future on a time-traveling safari meant to observe how we were in the past. They are supposed to keep out of sight, but thanks to human mechanical errors there have been hiccups with their cloaking which have resulted in being seen. That's why there have always been so many reports of them throughout history, but there has never been an attack. It's just us. Also, the reason why we don't see many examples of UFOs now even through pretty much everyone has a camera is because people are not that interested in this time period since we already document aspects of human life all the time. U/PM_ME_ART_PLZ responded. Due to the way the universe has developed over time, gas turned to stars formed galaxies, planets formed around stars, etc., there is actually reason to believe that the Earth may have been among the first planets to become habitable. The universe is old, but not infinitely old. The first few billion years at least were entirely uninhabitable. It's possible that 4 billion years ago, when the Earth formed into something that was stable enough to leave evidence, was when the universe itself first became capable of supporting life. If that's the case, then that would make Earth one of the first planets to support life in the entire universe. Assuming that intelligent life requires a few billion years to develop on other planets, like it did here, then again we may be the very first occurrence of sapient life in the universe. For all we know, there might be an explosion of extraterrestrial life that happens in 1 million years. That is very little time on galactic scales, almost within a margin of error, and yet that is longer than all of recorded human history by orders of magnitude. We may simply be early bloomers who fade away before the rest of the universe produces intelligent life. TLDR, humans may be one of the first occurrences of intelligent life in the universe. We might be 1 or 2 million years early and may simply fade away before another planet even begins to support life. U/Transmuthra responded. The closest alien civilization, 92 light-years away, died out hundreds of millions of years ago. The next closest, for 60 light from us, will begin evolving any day now and will attain technical mastery rivaling ours in about 1 billion more years. Currently, there are 2 other civilizations in our galaxy, one waning and one waxing. The closest of them is 23,737 light away. We don't just have to line up on a relatively close spatial scale. Time frame is as much a factor as distance. Most civilizations don't have a window of more than 20,000 years where they flourish before petering, or flashing, out. Let's not forget that faster-than-light travel is theoretical at best, wildly impractical in reality, probably requiring the energy of many stars to be useful. In our own galaxy, no civilization has even colonized more than 5 star systems, much less cannibalized them for speed juice. In short, nobody's been here, and probably nobody ever will. So it goes, U/half-man half-Zuckerberg responded. There's a musician-comedian that does a bit on how we are just a poof living planet now, but for another planet full of life to pop up it might be millions of years later and millions of miles away. Connecting the two would be impossible. I can't remember and it's on YouTube but I can't find out. I've been looking for 46 minutes lol. If you've seen it please share it with me. It's like Vlad the astronomer or something. Man tip of my tongue. U/Reno83 responded. I've come across 2 that make sense to me, neither denies the possibility of aliens, but both posit that humans and aliens will likely never interact in a meaningful way. 1. Aliens are long gone. The odds that humans will cross paths with another intelligent life form is slim. What if the aliens we are looking for are an extinct race of beings that existed millions of years ago? Maybe their civilization peaked during the age of the dinosaurs or even earlier. Who knows, they may have visited Earth when the most complex life was a single-celled organism and moved on. 2. Any aliens that reach Earth are lone travelers. Our species is just no exploring space travel and it takes a long time to reach other planets. Imagine if another species, in another solar system, just a few hundred years ahead of us, technologically, has sent out a one-way exploration mission. They couldn't possibly make it to Earth and back in one lifetime. The best they can hope for is to observe, collect data, and send it back to be received by the next generation. U/illuminated being responded. The premise of the movie Prometheus. Lots of people did not get the movie, especially the opening shots. A group of space travelers land on a planet that can support life, but does not have intelligent life yet. Their mission is to bring life to the universe. It would take millions of years for life to evolve on this plane. So they decide to give it a boost. They played God with our evolution. The travelers draw lots for one of them to sacrifice himself to seed life on the planet. So the chosen one takes a pill to disintegrate his DNA into the water of the plant, where his DNA combines with the amino acids in the oceans and forms all life. Of all the life forms that were created, one retains the most alien attributes, humans. The planet is Earth. The theory is this is the reason for so much diversity in life on Earth, but only one species with such heightened and evolved intelligence is because we are the hybrid aliens. Later the aliens realize that giving a boost and a jumpstart to the DNA of humans is a violation, because it does not allow for evolution of other attributes, i.e. morality, empathy, lack of violence, ability to integrate with nature instead of trying to abuse it, so their creation, us, will pose a threat to all life in the universe, once we develop space travel technology. Since the gods created us, the gods decide to destroy us with the perfect weapon, another hybrid creation, but this time combing human DNA with another alien life. On the way to deliver the perfect weapon they die and never complete the mission. Millions of years later, we developed the space travel, and in our quest to find our origins, we found aliens' remains and inadvertently completed the mission, creating our extinction. U/Mr. 47 responded. The gist is like this. Imagine in the future, we decide to settle, say, Europa, with genetically engineered humans. Since the genetic engineering is still controversial, or for whatever other reason you prefer, we decide to keep them isolated from humanity, not telling them about our existence, and simply follow their development as an experiment. So now we have this new race of humanoids on Europa, who aren't advanced at all, and think they are alone there, albeit seeing a human every now and then, since we still have to get in there sometimes, to adjust stuff. They think of the humans they see as divine beings, since we're way more advanced, obviously. At some point, a catastrophe on Earth requires humanity to leave the solar system in a rush, and the humanoids of Europa are just left there. They continue to thrive and develop, remembering humans as their gods in their religions. Humans come back to observe their children's development from time to time, and those humans become prophets in the humanoids' religions. Now, what if we are the race left behind? U/_lameboy_ responded. Neil deGrasse Tyson I wonder if, in fact, we have been observed by aliens and upon close examination of human conduct and human behavior they have concluded that there is no sign of intelligent life on Earth, he said. Tyson expanded on this idea by pointing out just how advanced an alien civilization would have to be to travel from a distant star system to our own, while by comparison humanity has only taken manned flights as far as the moon, so far. With that in mind, he worries that said alien civilization would simply think of us as, well, worms. You don't walk by the worm on the street and say, gee, I wonder what it's thinking. No, you step on the worm, Tyson said. In summary, we might be to intelligent life what worms are to us. We might be thinking too highly of ourselves. That's what's fascinating to me. U/GR1MLOC responded. Here's an explanation I came up with while dosed on LSD decades ago. Aliens are actually us, humans, after we invent time travel. My theory. Most often aliens are described as the grey type. Big brain cavity, big eyes, small chin, weak bodies. If you look back at our Neanderthal ancestors, you'll notice a few things. The jaws were huge and the brain cavity small. They were also much taller and more muscular than we are today. If you believe in evolution, you might think we are somewhere between Neanderthal and alien-like with our smaller framed bodies, small jaws, and bigger brains. Now, let's assume that the future Earth becomes dark, filled with pollution. This would subsequently block the sun, causing our skin to become pale, maybe even a shade of grey. We are forced to replicate air and live in an age of technology shrouded by our own dystopia. Our muscles become less used due to a technology-driven labor force. You may conclude that aliens are simply us coming back in time to fix things that had long-lasting negative impact. Trippier. U/Jarish responded. How about time travelers from the past? We have had future, but no one likes to talk about this. Humans have been on the Earth through 7 extinction-level events. What if one of them wiped out a civilization that was just as advanced or maybe even a little bit more advanced than ours? Good enough to maybe see the end coming, but not good enough to do anything about it. So what if they have time travel and they have been the ones coming around and watching how their far distant future offspring are doing? What if the reason some people test positive for Neanderthal DNA in their blood isn't because they're artifacts, but because they traveled forward and mated with us, joined into our society because they know we might come close, but we're the ones who make it? U/deleted responded. Remember a couple years back when that big asteroid that was kinda rectangular and a couple miles long was the first object to ever enter our solar system originating outside of it? That same object then left our solar system and increased its own speed to do so, which shouldn't have even been possible since it would have gotten caught in the gravitational pull of the sun and not have enough energy to do so. I'm also 100% certain that it was not an asteroid, it was probably some form of probe or ship that came to our system to observe it and then left. U/Sleepyscribe responded. I hope that aliens never visit. Setting aside the fact that they are likely far superior to us technologically, they are, well, aliens. Consider what happened when Europeans first visited the Americas. When the Spanish arrived in Mexico in March of 1520, there were likely about 22 million people living there. By December of that year, there were only about 14 million left. In 9 months, smallpox killed about 8 million people. And the waves of death didn't stop. Smallpox was only the first. By 1580, there were only 2 million people alive in Mexico. The numbers are completely stunning. Imagine what an alien disease would do to us. U/Fangyinks responded. Listen, y'all. There is so much space out there. So much space. Ridiculous amounts of space that we can barely comprehend how minuscule we are, and the limits of what we can comprehend already turn us into less than a speck of dust. There is no way in hell that our measly arses are the only living life forms out there, or that we're the only ones developed enough for space travel. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if it were the opposite. Now, do I believe that a random flash of light that someone saw in Nevada while high off their ass was a UFO? No. But I just can't fathom that we are the only life forms in this universe. U/Jellicknight responded. Time moves slower closer to a black hole, and there's a big-ass one at the center of our galaxy. Anyone further in than us hasn't had enough time to evolve yet, and anyone further out from us, while possibly evolved enough for FTL travel, would be coming here on basically a suicide mission. Their species would likely be extinct before they got back home. The only place aliens can feasibly come from, or that we can go to, is a narrow band laterally around the Milky Way, which reduces the Drake equation dramatically. The most feasible source of aliens is us. I.e., we go out and colonize new nearby planets. If we did that, it's quite likely that something like a comet or climatic change would disrupt the historical continuity of at least one of the planets, over a long enough time period. At least one of them would get sent back to the Stone Age and forget there was ever other humans out in the galaxy. Meanwhile, both sections of humanity would experience divergent evolution, coming to appear different from each other while being internally and functionally the same. Anatomically, modern humans have been on this planet for 300,000 years. This round of civilization has only been going on for 10,000 years. There has been enough time for our species to evolve from hunter-gatherer to spacefaring level at least 30 times over. U/Huxtable Jones responded. I thought this was a nice look at a possible explanation for the propulsion system of some of the more recent UAP, UFO, videos we've seen from military sources. It at least tries to have a semblance of empiricism. www.uaptheory.com It makes the claim that some of the odd qualities described by eyewitnesses and seen in videos suggest gravitational manipulation as a means of propulsion. It uses this as a framework to describe observed phenomena, warping the background as the objects travel, appearing to change in shape, showing off Einstein cross phenomena, i.e. a quadruple image of an object behind it, glassy sphere appearances described by witnesses, etc. It helps explain how these objects can accelerate at ludicrous speeds without destroying themselves or whoever is, theoretically, in them. It doesn't really take a stance on whether these are extraterrestrial or not, which I think is refreshing. If these really are some kind of vehicle with a propulsion system like this, it's ridiculously exotic. If it is something made on Earth, it represents a huge shift in aeronautics, and it makes sense why it would worry the military. If they're from elsewhere, it opens up all kinds of questions I don't know how to approach. I like to believe ET visitors would first be seen as von Neumann probes, but that's not really relevant, lol. U/Can't Havelt responded. They just cannot understand us. We have made up all of these different ways to communicate with frequencies, coordinates on spaceships, binary, but they just do not understand it. Like if we're sending out signals with wavelengths and they're sending stuff our way with something we haven't even discovered yet. What if we both went down two completely separate paths and haven't been able to even notice the messages they've been sending us? What if they're sending us a message through light and we're just like, oh, pretty colors, and go about our day? Then we send them messages through sound and they think that's a cool song and go about their day. Or maybe they've caught one of the many things that we have sent into space and are still trying to decipher it. Like they may not understand a binary signal and have spent years trying to figure it out. Or just like the many sounds from space that we get and have no idea what they mean. U/administer__dank responded. My theory is that there are massive technological leaps you must go through to get to FTL travel. Each one of those leaps brings with it the stronger possibility of a civilization destroying itself. In fact, the later leaps basically require that a civilization has already achieved a harmonious and peaceful existence with each other and their ecosystem to avoid self-destruction. So any civilization that has achieved FTL travel has found long ago the virtues of peace and harmony as a necessary element of the continuation of their species. It would be counterintuitive to contact a species that hasn't obtained that, as introducing a species to advanced technology when they haven't found peace is basically inviting an invasive species into the galaxy. Who would do that? Unless we find a way to coexist with each other and with our ecosystem peacefully and fruitfully, we will never make the technological leaps to get to FTL anyways, and we will remain a primitive war-like species to them until we destroy ourselves. U/M_Gray_designs responded. They are not aliens, they are us. About 12,000 to 13,000 years ago, the world was a lot more advanced than we now realize, probably pre-industrial revolution, think late 1700s. The Younger Dryas event happened, a rapid global cooling, possibly caused by a cosmic impact event into the Great Northern Ice Cap. Worldwide sea level rise from the impact, melting large sections of the ice sheet. Coastal settlements around the world are flooded and wiped out over several months. The amount of cold water flowing into the Atlantic changed the flow of the Gulf Stream. Over about a decade, the Northern Hemisphere went back into an ice age. Most, not all, civilization was wiped out and basically reset. Those that survived continued to technologically evolve and now would be so far beyond us that they would have technology that would appear to otherworldly. They might have colonized the Moon and Mars. Those that survived but were technologically reset would look upon them as gods. What survived of the previous advanced technology humans would be reclaimed and reused, think the Sfin, the Chinese, Egyptian, and Mexican Permans, the many great structure of India, of Khmer Wat and Khmer Tom, of Machu Picchu, Puma Punku, and Tiahuanaco. They are us, in 10,000 years or so. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Leave your own stories down below, I would love to read them. If you would like to see more videos like this, please like